Here we are with Leigh Gardner, and we are looking to, get a look at what it takes to put together a new variety. And I think it'd be a very interesting thing to hear what the process is all about. And joining us will be Lacey Gardner, and she'll be explaining what the process is in terms of collecting that data, and then of course assigning that data, a priority in hybridization. So Leigh, how do we get started?
Start evaluating the varieties in the field. We have a list that we make every summer that we feel is the best that we have to show, and we keep track of those, and we keep their evaluations. And when it comes time to do cross-pollinating, we use the information that we gathered during the evaluations, and we keep a list of trees that we have to pollinate, and then we compare parentages to see which is heritable and which is we feel is more heritable than others, and then we try to improve, use pollens that will improve that variety.
How old is the data? I mean, are we, we're looking at what? Generations, right? Generations. And I mean, any estimate, going back to when your dad actually was doing this, is there any kind of estimate? Are we talking 30 years worth of data, 40 years worth of data?
He really started working with the first ones way back, probably late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
And some of the parentages of these ring true back to that time, because one of the first pollens he used in this variety here was Bing.
Ah, very good.
He had OPs of Bing and grew those.
OP, open pollination, right?
Open pollinated, yes.
There you go. And what does open pollinating mean?
It means it accepted whatever pollen was blowing in the wind, or the bees.
There you go. That's right.
So you really don't know what the pollen parent was.
Yeah, that's about as traditional of hybridization as you can possibly get, right?
Yeah, growing seeds from OPs.
Yes.
And from there on, selections were made and more crosses were made, and some of these have quite a few OPs in them before we got to the one that became a good parent. And some of them are direct descendants of F1s, first generation from the cross.
So what makes a good parent? When do you decide you're at that point?
When the fruit quality is where you want it to be.
There you go. All right. Well, look at. How about Lacey? Lacey, what's your part?
What she used to do.
I know.
So evaluating the fruit, and then collecting all the data, and at the end of the year, deciding which crosses to make. So, and then you can also tell when you get new varieties and selections that you notice similar parentages, similar parents, and okay, this parent really threw off a lot of, let's say, really large ones. So you keep that in mind, and let's say if you need another pollen, you're like, okay, this one puts off large ones, and this is a tiny cherry, you can use that one, because it's been proven to put off larger, and there's many other examples.
So is that something that then gets put into the data?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah, it's all that data is collected, and that's how we keep these records to make informed decisions.
Right.
We make notes all year long.
In these books here, you can see this one's been fairly good all these years, and it's selected since 2017, and we're still evaluating it and using it. It's parentage because it's been fairly good.
What are you trying to tweak then when you add to it? I did hear the word virus.
We're always trying to keep them as virus free as possible. Cherries, unfortunately, are open pollinated, so they're very susceptible to getting viruses.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to keep a cherry virus free unless you have it in a real contained environment.
What about self-fruitful?
Yeah, that's also a factor in it.
How important is that in your assessment?
It's important in our assessments because in some areas where cherries have a hard time being pollinated, it's tough to get the two varieties together that bloom the same time when they're kind of out of their zone.
Right.
So if you can get one that's self-pollinating, you don't have to worry about whether these two are going to bloom together or not. And that way, it's like any peach tree, you can have one tree out there and it'll pollinate itself. The biggest problem with self-fertile cherries is that like peach trees, they're going to set every flower they have on their tree, and they will need to be thinned, or they will way overcrop. Your fruit will be small.
Would you be then looking for self-fruitful varieties that actually have the ability to set large fruit and then not need to be thin?
Yeah, that's a definite thing you would look for.
And so let me give you an example. Has Lapins achieved that? Because I know Lapins oversets a lot.
I know Lapins was one of those that came out that is self-fertile, but no, in conditions where it's perfect for it, it's going to set too many fruit, and you're going to need to thin it.
Yeah, I know that's a problem with it, right?
And same with some of the other ones that are self-fertile.
Yeah.
But then, just like peaches and nectarines, they set every flower, and you have to thin those to get the size you want.
Mechanical or spray now.
They
have the little finger ones, and they have the spray ones. They have many options besides just hand.
You know what? I never thought about that, but you're right.
They're chemical and mechanical.
Talking about cherries, simply because we don't really have the time to talk about every one. So what other qualities would we be looking for? What about disease resistance? Is there particular diseases in cherries that actually you would gain a foothold in the market if you were able to take and come up with a... what diseases are?
Probably more physiological things that create the opportunities for the disease to set in, like cracking. Rain cracking.
Oh,
so
good for
rain
you.
cracking is definitely
That's
something
huge.
we look to alleviate, because that opens the skin and allows the fungal spores to grow. So that there goes your brown rot and mildew problems. Another thing we look for is non-doubling for the heat in the valley, because that's another big problem with cherries, especially for the commercial growers, because you can't sell doubles.
Right.
Even though you're getting 2 for 1. There's other characteristics like sutures.
The suture, again, is the rib that forms down the outside of the
Yes.
fruit.
Yes.
Right.
And if those get to be too big, they're not allowed commercially. Yet you can find some that varieties that do not crack as bad in the rain, and those are the ones you want to lean on as parents. But then again, you have to possibly take that trait and put it into something that is more commercially acceptable, because that cherry a lot of times it's an old-fashioned cherry. It's one from years and years ago, but the quality is not where it needs to be for today's standards. So
Yeah.
you would take that and hopefully cross it back to something with good commercial quality with today's standards, and hope to carry that along with it. But then again, that takes a lot of seedlings and a lot of years of evaluation and testing to see if you brought that trait forward. When we're trying to decide what pollen to use in the spring for our new next generation of seedlings, we evaluate the parentage of that variety here, which goes back, 5, 10, 15 generations, and fortunately most of them I selected so I can still remember what they are and what they look like and what their characteristics are. And I see the evaluations of what that fruit was, and then I go back to our list that we made through the summer that shows which ones are the good ones and which ones are mediocre, and then I review their evaluations, and I see if this one's a little low in flavor, then I pick something over here that's going to be very high in flavor. And then I also evaluate its parentage so that I can see that there's other things that are going to complement it besides just flavor.
Right.
So
size, firmness, things like that.
Yeah, size, firmness, color, flavor.
Yeah, excellent.
Because some of them are wanting, red cherry is no longer what you need anymore. You got to almost have a black cherry, and then your white cherry has to have more blush. So, as buyers' preferences change, we have to change with them.
And the job gets more challenging.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, as we were saying, Lapins, Mini Royal, Royal Leigh, those can all be a size 12 cherry.
Okay.
12 row cherry. It's 21.4 millimeters.
Yes.
That was an acceptable size. It is no longer an acceptable size. When I evaluate fruit, if it's not at least a 9 row,
Wow.
I do not put it on the list. I don't show it to anybody.
Wow.
And it used to be, a few years ago it was 10, but now it's 9, because people started getting particular.
Wow.
and
That's
complaining.
amazing. Of
So
what
that's
you've seen out in the field.
So yeah, in previous years she would just get my opinion, and that's exactly what would happen. But in recent years, she now goes, "Here, do this job for me."
Oh, wow. Cool.
It's a big handover, but
Yeah, no. That makes good sense. Well, what a great job, you do at Zaiger Genetics, and definitely the effort is time consuming. It takes a lot of research, a lot of input, right? Right. Well, good. Thanks for all that.
You're welcome.